Alright, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to a brand new banger. Today we're reacting to Be a Man. Modernists and traditionalists debate masculinity. Now, two things I gotta say right off the bat. First thing, this video is 43 minutes long. Bro, ain't nobody got time for that. So we're just gonna watch the first 10 or maybe first 15 minutes of the video, and if it's cheeks, maybe we only get to 8 minutes, really depending on how bad it is. And you may be wondering, well, Acheeto, why are you being a pessimist? Why do you think it's gonna be bad? Well, first thing, something tells me this one right here is just gonna get under my skin with, saying some just out-of-pocket shit. I'm getting kill all men vibes from this one. They say never judge a book by its cover. Okay, fine. But even the thumbnail, it's like the modernists and the traditionalists. So I feel like on this side would be the modernist and then the traditionalist on this side. So yeah, I feel like this one's gonna bother me a little bit. And also, this video was posted by Vice, and Vice has made content in the past where they criticize masculinity. They made a hit piece on Andrew Tate where within that hit piece, they just trash masculinity throughout it, which they didn't have to do. I mean, you can take a fat, steaming, chunky crap on Andrew Tate without throwing masculinity under the bus. Andrew Tate can be criticized without throwing strays at the entire masculinity. But anyways, before I click play, leave a like on this video or else at 8:42 p.m. this evening, something bad's gonna happen to you, and you don't want that. So, all right, let's get into this.
I'm so tired of paying $150 for a first date, and then you just ghost me. And the next week, I'm hurting for cash. I'm I could have really used that $150. Why did I have to?
Also, the trade-off of going on a date and as the man being oh, this sucks, I have to pay, or as the woman being oh, this sucks, I might get murdered, is a pretty big imbalance.
Oh my god, bruh. This dude really, he did a good job setting the expectations with how he looks. I knew my expectations were already low because, I mean, we got bro dressed up like this. Just the overall fashion composition was a red flag to me. And so, credit where it's due. When you sort of present like this guy, I already know to not really expect much in terms of intelligent thought. So I appreciate that. I'm not surprised by what he just said. Oh my god, first 5 seconds and we're already getting into this. Okay, so this guy over here basically said oh, I don't like going on dates where there's no more second date, or just taking girls out and I have to pay $150 and then they ghost me, they never talk to me again. And then this one's response was, well, you may not like getting scammed basically, but women maybe would get murdered if they went on a date. It's dude, really? We're gonna do the what if game? What if a fucking meteor made out of tacos struck the earth right now and we all died? Oh, yeah, that would be bad. Women getting murdered is bad. Men getting scammed and ghosted for free dates probably happens far more than women get murdered on dates.
How you guys doing?
Vice invited male-identifying and non-binary folks from across the country to discuss their ideas of masculinity. Hold on, wait, what? I already know who the non-binary one is, but why are we inviting this guy to a talk about masculinity? Sorry, bro, you signed away your right to talk about this the moment that you changed your pronouns. You're literally a traitor, bro. You switched teams. You can't switch teams and then complain about the team that you were on. It's like a guy who wants to transition from male to female. Once he's a female, he's gonna shit talk men. It's no, buddy, you can't do that.
Masculinity, what it means to be a man, etc. Obviously, we couldn't fit every man in the country into this room. We tried to get a diverse perspective, but of course, that caveat, we're not everyone. I wanted to start by telling you why this is something that I'm interested in. I have an 8-year-old son, and I'm seeing him absorb what manliness might mean. I'm thinking to myself, what does it mean to be a man? To start, maybe we could just introduce each other to each other, and if you were to describe what it means to be a man or to be masculine.
My name is Tahoe. I'm a black man from the hood. When I was young, being a man, you had to be tough. You had to be hard. And now, to me, being a man is a lot different. Now, to me, being a man is knowing when to be soft. Knowing that you don't always have to run the charge. You can actually listen. You know what I mean? So things have changed a lot over the course of the years.
I think that guy's spitting facts. I agree that, where we were maybe 100 or 50 years ago, where men could basically get shunned by their friend group or their family for shedding a tear at any point in their life, that standard was pretty stupid. But now I think we've gone so far in the other direction where we're saying oh, it's okay to cry once a day. You should cry every single day. You should always be in touch with your emotions. You should do this, you should do that. It's no, I think they're does need to be a sort of resurgence of masculine stoicism, as if, you know, maybe we were back 20 or 30 years. Again, I'm not saying at all that, you know, if you get shot 5 times in the chest with like a 12 gauge that you just have to keep a straight face because you're a man or whatever. No, I'm just saying that like this thing that we got going on right now isn't working very well. We're like normalizing depression to a super mainstream. Guys are acting like girls are acting like guys. It's all sort of backwards. So I don't know. I think we gotta like clean this up a little bit.
I'm Griffin, and I don't identify as a man. I'm non-binary.
Go home.
I still have elements of, you know, my identity that are masculine, elements that are feminine, elements that don't fall within that range. And I personally just don't feel tied to like the norms or the confines of gender at all.
Bro, imagine being this guy and then Griffin is just breathing heavily to the back of your balding head. I'd be so mad.
I just don't feel tied to like the norms or the confines of gender at all.
Well, welcome.
My name is Dylan, and I think that the notion of masculinity is just something that can be possessed by man or woman. Man, woman, non-gender conforming person. What it means to be masculine is...
Very small thing. Bro, keep the camera on this guy when he's speaking. I don't need to see the live Griffin cam every single time.
just like, you know, changing and like very fluid. But I think that, you know, masculinity is something that just, you know, like you embody based off of just like how you show up in this world as a man and just like, you know, how you go about being your day-to-day.
How you show up. Interesting.
Yes.
What's up, guys? My name is Paul. I'm a fitness entrepreneur. I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 4 years old with my family. It's kind of funny how we're talking about it. My take on masculinity is not about talking as much as doing. I think at its core, a man has to be efficient, competent, and be willing to do what it takes for themselves and their loved ones.
That's so fact. I think action taking is a big part of masculinity, and I think that like part of why men are not taking action as much as maybe we were in the past has a lot to do with social media. Like if you're just scrolling all the times, you're like put in this trance, you're hypnotized, you're wasting time when you could be taking action. And you could say, oh yeah, but like isn't that the same with watching YouTube videos? Listen, I've made it pretty clear that I think when I make content, I only make it for people that have free time throughout their day to be watching YouTube. I'll say it right now, maybe I'll lose some watch retention on this video, but if you have homework to do, if you have something to do right now, pause the video and come back to it when you're done. Taking action is very important. I think that it definitely matters a lot.
I was not always a good man. I was not always what you would call a healthy masculine man. And so as my life has changed, I've identified 5 points that I think make a truly masculine man masculine.
Okay.
I think point number 1 is a man who walks with God. Point number 2 is a man who stands on principle. Point number 3, which is a masculine man, is self-sacrificing. So someone who is willing to sacrifice for point 4, the people that he leads. A true man is a leader. And number 5, a masculine man is never a coward.
That's a lot there.
Yeah.
Let's get into that as we go on.
I think what it means to be a man is responsibility. As a man, it can come with a lot of power. And with great power comes great responsibility. In short words. That's it.
That's from Spider-Man, I think.
Yeah,
right?
that's what's
Uncle Ben.
James.
Well, my name is James Killen, former United States Marine turned Air Force officer. Got a couple combat tours, but I'm also a father of 3 girls who mellowed me out. The idea of masculinity is something that I find interesting because it is changing, and I can actually see those changes in myself. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this panel.
Thanks for your service. Andre.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, men. I think my idea of a real man is, you know, someone that gets the job done, you know, and
A lot of ums coming from this guy. I was like, can't get a thought out.
provides and all that. I don't even know what that means anymore, but yeah, I don't know. It's changing every day.
How do you think it's changing?
No, it just seems like everything's changing every day. It's like a new world order, you know, so I have a hard time keeping up with stuff, so I feel like tomorrow it's gonna be something else, and people are gonna comment and be like, you're wrong, it's this now.
It is hard to talk about some of this stuff because you feel like you might say the wrong thing.
I'm not really masculine myself, so I feel like I'm like the wrong person to ask. You know?
Maybe the right person to ask. Christian.
What it means to be a man is to be an adult human male.
That's sort of a very formal definition, but I think that might be a good place to kick off because there's a lot of talk, of writing, of research these days that says there's a crisis in masculinity. Is there a crisis in masculinity? And if so, like, what is that crisis?
Yes, bro, and I don't know what exactly started this thing or where exactly this began, but I noticed this shit, bro. People are just like pussies now. And it's not even like with the stuff that you would think that I'm talking about, like, oh yeah, bro, nobody has any confidence anymore, nobody has any of this, but no, it's like we're just so like soft, I guess. And I know everybody's so used to hearing some guys say on the internet, like, oh, this generation is so soft, but that's not even what I'm talking about. It's like, have you noticed that like you sort of like have this internalized censorship of yourself? It's like you kind of have to walk on eggshells until you really know a person. Like, I don't know what it is, man, but back when I was in middle school or even high school a little bit, if I had a joke that I thought was funny and there was somebody who I didn't know, who I wanted to tell the joke to, I could just tell the joke to him. Now it feels like I have to kind of analyze whether or not my joke will offend this person. And you may be thinking, well, Acheeto, what were the jokes that you were telling? Bro, they were not that bad. It just really does feel like now there's a lack of a unified male consciousness, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like there should be a brotherhood where it's like, oh, if you just see a guy on the street or a guy, that you walk past, that within maybe 4 sentences, you can kind of become his friend. I don't feel like that's how it is really anymore. Certain people, 100%, there definitely is, but it's not as prominent as it used to be,
Thing that I see is a lot of deconstructing generational trauma. The be a man, boys don't cry, this, that, and the other thing. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why we see it as a crisis, because we're actually trying to redefine what it means to be a man, and none of us have any idea because we're just out here trying to be whoever we are.
That's right. I think that historically, being a man was rooted in patriarchy and misogyny. And now we realize how harmful that has been over the years. And so we don't really know how to define where we're supposed to be. And I think the reason, as they're saying, there's a crisis is because the box has gotten so small for just being, say, straight, just being a hetero, right? Because if you do anything, women judge you.
What do you mean anything?
If I dance a certain way, or if I wear my hair a certain way.
I'm sorry, bro, but what hair? I mean, I guess maybe if he put on like a do-rag with like a rainbow pattern on, yeah, then maybe, the girls may think you're a bit gay. But he's like, if I wear my hair a certain way, bro, I think there's only one way you can wear it.
Real men don't do that. Real men don't do that. And so you get scared to move a certain way because you don't want to get judged or outed out of the accepted part of your community. And I think that kind of has us in an uproar, and we don't know where to be. Like, where's the safe place to be?
It's an interesting point that he makes, and I think I agree with it to a certain extent. But again, I just think it's not as prevalent as maybe it used to be. Obviously, this guy's a lot older than me, and he has more experience, so there's more time where what he's talking about would have been true. Like, I don't know, maybe back in 2000 or the 90s, if you bust out a certain type of dance move, you're gonna get called a queer. But like now, it's trendy for guys to wear skirts and to like twerk on TikTok and stuff. So it's like gone so far the other direction where it's like you're being encouraged to do these things that are seen as not straight or rejecting some sort of heterosexual norm, and you're being rewarded for doing so. I mean, look on TikTok. Look at the top TikTok male influencers. On their pages, they're all gonna have like at least one video of them dancing to a Cardi B song in a way that a woman would, And those videos are gonna have millions of likes because this is where we're at right now. And I'm not saying that we should go back like so far to the point where people are literally frightened to post videos like that because they're gonna lose all their friends because everyone's gonna think that he's gay or something. I'm just saying, bro, mainstreaming this to this extent where there's like almost an underlying pressure to not only accept it but to replicate it, I think that's bad.
Now, you know what I mean? And it's kind of disturbing.
I was what you would call a toxic masculine male growing up. And I had good men that sewed into me. They gave me good advice. But I never found manhood or never understood my place as a man until one day I humbled myself and I gave my life to the Lord Jesus Christ. And I'm telling you right now, walking with God changed my life forever.
Can you define toxic masculinity? Like,
I would say toxic masculinity is like what he was just saying, where you're using that leadership role or that aggressive nature in a harmful way to harm other people, to get your way. So the biblical structure for manhood is very humble. It's self-sacrifice. It's not self-motivated, but it is motivated by principle and standing on what's right. So there is a clear-cut vision for manhood in the Bible that I live by, and I think our culture used to live by, and I think our culture has lost its way.
I think everybody sort of has a different definition of toxic masculinity. I don't find masculinity toxic in and of itself, but I do believe in bad men, and bad men exist. But does that mean every man is toxically masculine? No.
When you're talking about a crisis on masculinity, I think that there's a lack of understanding there. So it's like masculinity, being masculine isn't toxic. It's just like there are portions of it that you can dive into that make it toxic.
Because I think a lot of what we think of masculinity is tied into patriarchy, right? Which is to say, like, for the longest period of human history, like, men dominated women and got the lion's share of stuff.
I think a lot of times some people make masculinity into a caricature, like it has to be this alpha bro tough guy.
Exactly.
And I find the low-key guy who, you know, is a really great father and a great husband and maybe not like drinking raw eggs every day to be a lot more masculine than the alpha bro who's going and like banging 20 women per weekend and not a responsible man.
I agree with that. I think that caricature of masculinity or whatever, almost like the Andrew Tate kind of stuff, it can be a little corny, especially when it's the dominant thing. So yeah, obviously I think Andrew Tate is a little bit corny, but considering that he's sort of like the current counterculture, at the end of the day, I can't hate him. If Andrew Tate was like the biggest thing in the country, you know, that everybody sort of believed in and was the standard, then I would say, yeah, no, this probably isn't healthy. But Andrew Tate's prominence, his rise to success, was sort of a cultural reaction to a lot of what I was talking about earlier, which is like this mainstream absence of any sort of masculinity. But I agree with the guy. I don't think you need to be like this caricature like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast in order for you to be a masculine man, for sure. I don't go out of my way to like LARP as some sort of like manly man or whatever, because, you know, I have no need and desire to do that. Sure, I go to the gym, I try my best to stay healthy and be a good man, but I feel like if it gets to the point where you're like role playing, you gotta reconsider.
I find it more masculine to be a good guy.
I think the background of this is that we are saying that gender is this like real thing that has real ideas and implications. And Griffin, I'm wondering, as someone who identifies as non-binary, how does this conversation strike you?
Well, I think that it kind of becomes like irrelevant whether or not we attribute like having like a good ethical compass to being like masculine. Attributing that to like the gender constructs which we have made up, which are like somewhat pointless, like kind of just feed into needless roles that uphold the patriarchy without even knowing it. A lot of those things are just things that people should be doing because they're like morally right. Like if you're in a family, you should probably support your family. And I really don't think that it has to do with like your manhood.
These people like Griffin over there who act as if like gender doesn't exist totally reject human nature. Like, do you not think, you know, the fact that men and women are different are going to end up with them en masse as groups behaving differently and developing, unifying, and defining traits? Like, obviously it will. And these people who act like it's all a societal construct, I mean, it's just because you're like reading too much into it. It's like you read all these things that say, oh, gender's a construct, and you get so wrapped up in believing that you like literally forget that human nature exists. Like, you control alt delete the part of your brain that can recognize that we all have biological and natural inclinations.
These characteristics that we're talking about are baked into an old system of domestic life.
I think that's actually where we get toxic masculinity. Like, none of us can really describe what it is, but we can see it when it happens.
So we learn it, right?
I'm human, yeah.
This is something we learn from the world. It's something we learn from, like, TV and shit, and it's maybe something we learn from our dads, too. Tell me about your dad.
I'm a first-generation kid. My dad is from Guyana. Grew up in very humble beginnings, poor family. First time I remember my dad telling me he loved me was when I was 17. And he was like saying like he was proud of me because I was about to graduate high school and things like that, you know. I'm appreciative of all the other things, you know, being present as a provider, but in terms of like, you know, the conversation piece and like, oh, I want to talk to my dad about, you know, sex or something, or I want to talk to my dad about, oh, this person broke up with me and I'm feeling pretty sad about it. I didn't have those conversations.
So like emotional language as part of like how you talk to your dad.
Yeah.
And my definition of manhood came solely from my relationship with God. It didn't come from my father. It didn't come from the good influences around me.
Is God a man?
Yeah, and God is a man.
He is.
God is a father, and he's a good father. He's a perfect father. And so I think there is a clear definition of manhood where I guess that's where I diverge from everyone else in the room. I believe manhood is clearly defined by God. It is the perfect example of what a man should be.
Christian, I see you nodding your head.
I grew up in a divorced home. When you do grow up in a broken home and you don't have a father in the home, you recognize how important sort of both males and females are in raising a child and being in the home.
Okay. Yeah, we're about 10 minutes into it. I don't know if Griffin ends up going off the rails or not, but this has been a pretty good discussion, I think, so far. If you guys want to watch the full video for yourself, I mean, honestly, you probably have better things to do, but, you know, you see it over here. It's Be a Man, Modernist and Traditionalist Debate Masculinity. But with that all being said, I hope you guys ended up enjoying this video. If you have, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Comment down tomato if you made it to the end of the video. Follow my social medias. Links are all down below. Catch you guys later. Goodbye.